called my hardware store a museum and said I belonged in it. My son-in-law stole my legacy while my daughter defended him. They thought the old man was finished. They didn't know that my late wife had left one last blueprint hidden in the vault. If you're listening to this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. It helps to know you're not alone when the world collapses. My name is Thomas Miller, and until recently I thought I understood loyalty. I thought I knew my own family. I was wrong. The sound of the gavel cracked through the air, sharp, final, like a nail driven into a coffin. My coffin. Sold! Lot 22, the forklift, to bidder number 5. I stood at the back of my own store. Miller's Hardware, 40 years of sweat, sawdust, and memories. Now, it smelled like dust and failure. Empty metal shelves surrounded me. Shelves that used to hold everything this town needed to fix what was broken. I used to be the guy who fixed things. Now, I was the one who was broken. A bright red banner hung over the entrance. Bankruptcy auction. It screamed my failure to the world. I saw faces I'd known for decades. Old man Henderson. I fixed his plumbing last winter. He wouldn't look at me. Mrs. Gable, my neighbor, stared at me with pity and suspicion. The suspicion cut the deepest. They thought this was my fault. They thought I let them down. They didn't know the truth. This failure wasn't an accident. It wasn't the economy. It was family. It all started 18 months ago, a crisp Sunday. The house smelled like Elizabeth's roast chicken. It was the first time the house felt warm since she passed 5 years ago. My daughter Sarah was there. Next to her sat Ryan, her husband. Ryan was sharp, expensive suit. He talked about market penetration and optimized supply chains. He had an MBA and a smile that felt too bright, too practiced. I never trusted him. He looked at my life's work like it was a teardown. And that afternoon, he made his move. Sarah was clearing the plates. Ryan cornered me in the living room. He swirled his expensive wine. "Thomas," he started, his voice smooth as oil. "The store is charming. It has good bones." Charming. The word felt like an insult, like he was patting a dog on the head. "But let's be honest," he continued. "It's stuck in the 1990s. It's dying a slow death." I flinched. "The store does fine, Ryan. It pays the bills. It put Sarah through college. It's stable." "Stable is just another word for stagnant," Ryan countered. He leaned closer. The smell of his cologne was overpowering. "You deserve more. Elizabeth would have wanted more." He twisted the knife. Mentioning Elizabeth always disarmed me. He knew it. He used her memory like a key to unlock my defenses. I felt the familiar ache in my chest. He was using her, and I was letting him. Sarah came back in, her eyes shining with excitement. "Dad, Ryan has amazing ideas. He wants to modernize an online store, a second location." Ryan smiled. That perfect fake smile. "Thomas, you deserve to retire. Let me take the wheel. I can secure the financing. We leverage the assets. The growth pays for itself. You stay on as a consultant. Go fishing." Consultant. The word tasted like ash in my mouth. I hesitated. The store was my anchor after losing Elizabeth. It was my connection to the life we built. Letting go felt like losing her all over again. But Sarah looked so hopeful. She believed he was a genius. I wanted to trust the man my daughter loved. He was family now. Maybe I was just an old dog refusing to learn new tricks. Maybe it was time. I ignored the cold knot forming in my stomach. I said yes. I thought I was securing her future. I was actually setting it on fire. A week later, we were in the lawyer's office. Mr. Evans, an old family friend. The stack of papers was thick. Ryan was rushing. "Standard procedure, Thomas," Ryan said, clicking his expensive pen, pointing where to sign. "We need controlling interest, 51% to make swift changes, to secure the loans without delay. We can't bother you with every little decision." It sounded reasonable. It sounded efficient. It sounded like a lie. Mr. Evans adjusted his glasses. He looked hesitant. "Thomas, are you sure about this? This gives Ryan significant authority. And this personal guarantee clause," Ryan interrupted smoothly. "Mr. Evans, we appreciate your caution, but Thomas and I have an understanding. We're family." "They're family, Evans," I repeated. Like a fool, I signed my name. The ink dried. Just like that, I handed over the keys to my kingdom. I didn't know I had just armed my enemy. The first few months were quiet, too quiet. I tried to enjoy retirement. I went fishing with my buddy, Dave. The lake was calm, but my mind was restless. The water felt too still. I felt adrift. The silence in the house was deafening. The routine I relied on was gone. I missed the hustle. I missed the smell of sawdust in the morning. I missed being needed. Retirement didn't feel like freedom. It felt like exile. I started stopping by the store, just to check in, just to feel the floorboards under my feet. But things felt different. Cold. Ryan was always busy. Meetings, calls, surrounded by spreadsheets and young men in tight suits. They looked at me like I was a dinosaur, a relic. "We're streamlining, Tom," Ryan would say, barely looking up from his laptop. He started calling me Tom. I hated it. Big things coming. He said it like a promise. But it felt like a threat. Then I met Liam, one of Ryan's new hires, a consultant. He couldn't have been older than 25. He wore glasses that looked too big for his face, and was constantly checking his smartwatch. He was the embodiment of everything I hated about modern business. All flash, no substance. I was trying to help Miss Gable find a specific type of screw, the old way. By knowing where it was, Liam rushed over. He physically stepped between me and Mrs. Gable. "Mr. Miller, please," he sighed, exasperated. "We have a digital kiosk for that now. You're confusing the customer flow." "I was just helping," I stammered. Mrs. Gable looked confused. "Your help is counterproductive to the optimized experience," Liam said, looking at his watch again. He didn't even make eye contact with me. "Ryan needs you in his office." "Sorry, the office." He shooed me away, like I was a nuisance, a trespasser in the store I built. I stood there, speechless, humiliated. Mrs. Gable walked away, shaking her head. The optimized experience. It felt like the beginning of the end. And then the real changes started. The changes that began to erase me completely. I drove past the store one afternoon. I nearly choked on my coffee. I had to pull the truck over. The sign was gone. The hand-painted wooden sign Elizabeth helped me design, the one with the crossed hammer and wrench. 40 years it hung there. It was the heart of the store. It was lying in the dumpster out back. In its place was a monstrosity. Sleek, cold metal. It just read, "Miller's." It looked corporate, sterile, devoid of warmth, devoid of history. My heart pounded. My hands gripped the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. This wasn't modernization. It was vandalism. It was desecration. I stormed inside. The familiar smell of pine and machine oil was gone, replaced by something artificial, like a hospital waiting room. The old wooden shelves built by my own hands were gone, replaced with bright white plastic. The lighting was harsh, clinical. It hurt my eyes. Liam was standing by the entrance, holding a clipboard. He nodded curtly, no smile, just a cold acknowledgement of my presence. I found Ryan in my old office. He had replaced my worn leather chair with something black and futuristic. My oak desk, the one Elizabeth gave me for our 10th anniversary, was gone, replaced by a sheet of glass on metal legs. "What did you do?" I demanded. My voice was shaking with rage. "The sign. Where is the sign?" Ryan sipped espresso from a tiny cup. He didn't even look up. "Rebranding, Thomas." The old look was dated. It was in the dumpster, where it belongs. Dated? It was classic. It was trusted. Elizabeth painted that sign. "We need to attract a younger demographic," he said calmly, typing on his laptop. "We're positioning ourselves as a lifestyle brand, not just a place to buy screws." "A lifestyle brand? It's a hardware store," I shouted. I slammed my hand on his new shiny glass desk. It rattled precariously. Ryan stood up slowly. His voice was sharp for the first time. The tension in the room was thick. He looked me straight in the eye, cold, dismissive. "Nostalgia doesn't pay the bills, Thomas." Then the impact, the insult that was meant to break me. "I'm running a business, not a museum," he spat. "And frankly, you look like you belong in one." I swallowed hard. The silence in the office was suffocating. My ears rang. For a second, I forgot how to breathe. "You gave me control. Remember?" he continued, his voice dripping with contempt. "Let me do my job. If you can't handle the progress, maybe you shouldn't come around so much." He had just told me I wasn't welcome. The dread in my stomach turned icy. He wasn't just changing the store, he was erasing me. Erasing Elizabeth. I walked out, the glass door clicking shut behind me. It felt like a tomb ceiling, and that was just the first cut. The next one would draw blood. The next blow came a week later. A phone call, early morning. It was Kevin. My store manager. He had been with me for 25 years. He was the backbone of the store, always had a pencil behind his ear, always smelled faintly of machine oil. Thomas. Kevin's voice cracked. He sounded broken, devastated. Kevin, what's wrong? I asked, my heart sinking. He let me go, Thomas. I couldn't breathe. The air felt thin. What? Why, what reason did he give? Walked in this morning. Liam was with him. Ryan didn't even look at me. Liam did the talking. Kevin choked back a sob, handed me a severance check, told me I wasn't agile enough for the new direction. Agile enough. Kevin knew where every single washer and bolt was located. He knew our customers by name. He knew their kids' names. Liam escorted me out, Thomas, Kevin whispered. The shame in his voice was palpable. Security protocol, he called it. Like a criminal. 25 years. Firing Kevin wasn't streamlining. It was sabotage. It was cruel. It was a message to me. I have the power, and I will use it. I was furious. I drove straight to Sarah's house. They had recently moved. A large, modern house on the edge of town, glass and steel, cold and imposing, far beyond their previous means. The driveway was paved with my legacy. I needed Sarah to talk sense into her husband. I needed my daughter back. I needed her to see the monster she married. I hammered on the door. She opened it. Wearing an expensive dress. Getting ready for some charity event. The high life. She looked uncomfortable when she saw me. Her eyes darted around nervously. He fired Kevin, I said, skipping the pleasantries. I pushed past her into the sterile foyer. The house smelled like nothing. Dad, please, she whispered. Ryan is on a conference call. Keep your voice down. I don't care about his call. He fired Kevin. Sarah, a man who dedicated his life to that store, a man who was there when you took your first steps. Sarah wouldn't meet my eyes. She twisted her wedding ring, a massive diamond that looked gaudy on her hand, a nervous habit she recently developed. Dad, Ryan explained this, she said softly. Her voice was tight, rehearsed. Kevin was resisting the new inventory system. He was slowing things down. Slowing things down. He was the only one holding it together. He was loyal, Sarah. You can't buy loyalty. You can't replace 25 years of experience with a kid like Liam. We're trying to save the business, Dad, she pleaded, her voice rising. Ryan says the margins were terrible. We have to cut costs. We have to modernize. She sounded like him. Cold. Calculating. I looked around the expensive house, the luxury SUV in the driveway, the abstract art on the walls that looked like someone spilled paint. Cutting costs? I asked, gesturing wildly. Does this look like cutting costs to you? This house? This car? That ring on your finger? That's not fair, she shot back, her face hardening. Ryan is investing in our future. He earned this. Please, just trust him. He's doing this for us. She was blinded by the lifestyle, by the illusion of wealth. She didn't see the foundation crumbling. She didn't see the price I was paying. He's destroying everything I built, I whispered. The realization hit me like a physical blow. Everything your mother and I built. She flinched, but she didn't back down. Her eyes hardened. They looked like Ryan's eyes. He's securing our future. Why can't you see that? Why do you have to fight him on everything? Why are you so stuck in the past? Because he's a snake. Sarah, can't you see it? He's destroying us. No, Dad, I can't, she cried, tears welling up in her eyes. All I see is a man trying to help, and a father who can't let go of the past. A father who is bitter. She paused, then delivered the cruelest blow, the words that shattered my heart. Sometimes I think you're jealous of his success. Jealous. The word stung more than anything else. I stared at her. My daughter. A stranger wearing her face. I turned and walked away. I had lost my wife. My business. And now I had lost my daughter. I felt utterly alone. The darkness was closing in. The store deteriorated fast. It was like watching a slow-motion train wreck, a painful, agonizing death. Ryan replaced experienced staff like Kevin with minimum-wage kids. Kids who stared at their phones and couldn't tell you the difference between a drywall anchor and a lag bolt. Customer service vanished. He cut ties with our local suppliers, the ones I had worked with for decades, the ones who built this town with me. He opted for cheap, imported junk. Tools that broke on the first use. Garbage. The quality Miller's hardware was known for disappeared overnight, and the customers noticed. They noticed the change, and they blamed me. I ran into Stan Petrov at the diner a few days later. Stan supplied all our lumber. He was a tough old bird, built like an oak tree, always chewed on a toothpick. He was a man of his word. He slid into the booth across from me. He didn't smile. He looked angry. "Thomas, what in the hell is going on?" Stan demanded. The toothpick bobbed angrily. He slammed his coffee mug on the table. "Stan, your son-in-law canceled my contract," Stan interrupted. His voice was loud. People turned to look. 30 years we worked together, canceled by email, sent by that punk kid, Liam. He said he found a cheaper supplier, Stan continued, his face red with anger. Imported junk from overseas. He leaned closer, his voice low and rough. "He's selling green wood, Thomas. Unseasoned. It'll warp before the summer ends. He's selling garbage and putting your name on it." Stan shook his head, disgusted. "I thought you were better than this." Elizabeth would be ashamed. He walked away before I could explain, before I could tell him it wasn't me. The hits kept coming, and they were all aimed at me. My reputation, my legacy. Ryan was systematically dismantling my life. Piece by piece. I ran into Dave, my fishing buddy, later that week. We used to talk for hours. This time, the atmosphere was chilly. The silence between us was heavy. He didn't smile. "Tried to buy some plumbing fixtures at your place, Thomas," he grumbled, stirring his coffee. "Junk, all cheap junk." The kid behind the counter ignored me for 10 minutes. I tried to defend myself. "It's not me, Dave. It's Ryan. He's running things now. I don't have control." Dave shook his head. He looked disappointed, pitying. "Heard he's in over his head. Heard rumors, Thomas." "What rumors?" I asked, dreading the answer. "I knew what was coming, that you pushed him into this expansion thing," Dave said quietly. "That you got greedy, wanted to compete with the big box stores, and then checked out when things got tough. Left him holding the bag." He paused. "Shame what happened. You let that city boy ruin a good thing." I realized what Ryan had been doing. He wasn't just destroying the business. He was poisoning the well, painting a picture of a stubborn old man who couldn't handle the modern world. A greedy fool who flew too close to the sun, and everyone believed him. Because the store was failing, and my name was still on the sign. I was isolated, stewing in regret and anger. I had to know the truth. I had to know how deep the rot went. I started digging into the business accounts. What little access I still had. I stayed up late, the glow of the computer screen reflecting in my eyes. Things didn't add up. Ryan talked about expansion, but revenue was dropping like a stone. Costs were skyrocketing. Yet large sums of money were moving out of the business account, labeled as consulting fees. Consulting fees? To whom? Liam? It didn't make sense. The amounts were staggering. I noticed something else. The loan paperwork. The sheer size of the loans Ryan had taken out was breathtaking. The interest rates were astronomical. It looked like predatory lending. It looked like desperation. I recognized the name of the loan officer on the documents. Janice Reed. I remembered her from the bank, young, ambitious, always clicking her pen. Nervous energy. She always seemed eager to please. I wondered if she knew something, if she saw the red flags, or if she was just incompetent. Or worse, complicit. I knew I had to confront Ryan, but this time I needed proof. I needed a weapon. I cornered him at the store late one evening. The lights were dim. The empty shelves cast long shadows. It felt like a graveyard. The graveyard of my dreams. "Where is the money going, Ryan?" I demanded. I slammed the bank statements on the counter. The sound echoed in the empty space. He looked annoyed, like I was interrupting something important. He was on his phone. He held up a finger, signaling me to wait. I grabbed the phone from his hand and threw it against the wall. It shattered. "Listen to me," I roared. Ryan looked shocked, then angry. "Are you crazy? That was an expensive phone. I don't care about your phone. I care about my business. Operating costs. Marketing. You wouldn't understand the complexities of modern business finance." I mocked his hezzer words. "Operating costs don't explain $50,000 transferred to an offshore account," I shouted. "And these loans? The interest rates are insane. Janice Reed approved these. Why would she approve loans for a failing business?" Ryan went very still, the color crayon from his face. The mask slipped. He knew I was getting close to the truth. "You shouldn't be spying on me," he hissed. "That's confidential information. You have no right. This is still my business. My name is still on the sign." He stepped closer. His eyes were dark with malice. The charming son-in-law was gone, replaced by something ugly, something vicious. "It's my business, Thomas," he sneered. "The papers you signed made sure of that. 51%. I own you. You're just a consultant. Remember, a silent partner." He leaned in, his voice dripping with contempt, his breath hot on my face. "So, go consult somewhere else. Your input is no longer needed." He jabbed a finger into my chest. Hard. "In fact, you're trespassing. Get out, before I call security." Trespassing. In the store I built. The realization hit me like a punch to the gut. I had no legal standing. I had willingly given him control. I had been so naive, so trusting, blinded by the desire to please my daughter. I walked out of my store for the last time as its owner. Defeated, I had to find another way to stop him, or I would lose everything. And the nightmare was just getting started. I couldn't afford a lawyer. My savings were dwindling. The dividends from the store had stopped months ago. Ryan was bleeding me dry. I was running out of options, running out of time. So I did the only thing I could think of. I hired a private investigator. It felt dirty, spying on my son-in-law, spying on family. But he wasn't family. He was a parasite. I used the last of my emergency fund to pay the retainer. If this story is keeping you hooked, drop a like. It was that decision that changed everything. The PI was that changed everything. The PI was a grizzled man named Mark. He looked tired, cynical. His office smelled like stale coffee and cigarettes. His eyes were sharp, though. He didn't waste words. He looked like he'd seen the worst of humanity, and was no longer surprised by it. "Family jobs are always the messiest," Mark said, taking my check. He lit a cigarette. "What do you want to know?" "Everything," I said. "Where the money is going. Why Janice Reed approved those loans. Everything." Mark nodded slowly. He took a long drag from his cigarette. "It'll cost you." "I'm already broke," I said. "Just find the truth." He came back a few days later, with a thick folder. He sat down in my living room. The smell of smoke filled the air. "Mr. Miller," Mark said, his voice grave, "you have a problem, a big one." He opened the folder. The contents spilled out onto my coffee table. Evidence of a betrayal so deep, it took my breath away. It was worse than I imagined. Ryan wasn't expanding Miller's hardware. He was bleeding it dry, systematically. He had used the store's assets, the building, the inventory, as collateral for massive loans. But the loans weren't for the business. "He's deep in debt, Mr. Miller," Mark explained, taking another drag from his cigarette. "Gambling debt, high-risk investments in the stock market, crypto schemes that collapsed. He was drowning before he even met your daughter. The realization hit me. It was a setup, all of it. The marriage, the modernization plan. He had targeted me, targeted the business. From the very beginning, I was an easy mark, an old fool. Mark pointed to the loan documents, the transfers to the offshore accounts. This Janice Reed, at the bank, Mark said, tapping the photo of her. She wasn't just incompetent. She was complicit. She got a hefty kickback for approving these loans, a percentage of the offshore transfers. She knew they were bad. She didn't care. Institutional, betrayal, corruption, they were all in on it. He never intended to save the business. He intended to bankrupt it, cash out on the property value. The land the store sat on was prime real estate, and leave me with the ruins. It was calculated, cold, ruthless. He had manipulated my daughter, destroyed my reputation, all to save his own skin. It wasn't just business. It was cruel. I had to tell Sarah. I had to make her see the truth. I had to save her from him. I brought the evidence to her house. I laid it all out on her expensive glass coffee table, the loan documents, the bank transfers, Mark's report, the proof of the kickbacks to Janice Reed, the photos of Ryan meeting with shady characters. Sarah stared at the papers, her face pale, her hands trembling. She looked sick. "I don't understand," she whispered. Her voice was small, broken. He said the loans were for the new location. He showed me the blueprints. He promised me, "There is no new location, Sarah," I said gently, my heart aching for her. The blueprints were fake. He used the store to cover his personal debts. He's bankrupting us. I paused. The hardest part. He used you, honey. He never loved you. He loved the money. Ryan walked in then, all smiles, whistling. The perfect husband, the perfect life. The smile vanished when he saw the papers, when he saw me, when he saw the look on Sarah's face. The mask didn't just slip, it shattered. The monster underneath was finally exposed. "What is this?" he demanded. He snatched the documents from Sarah's hands. His eyes scanned the pages. He realized how trapped he was. "Where did you get this? You hired a PI?" "You pathetic old man." His charming facade crumbled. The cornered animal emerged, vicious and desperate. "It's the truth, Ryan," Sarah whispered. Her voice trembled with fear and disbelief. Tears streamed down her face. "You lied to me. You lied to my father. You used us. Everything was a lie. I did what I had to do," Ryan shouted. His face was red with fury. "I was trying to protect us. Protect this lifestyle you love so much." He pointed at the expensive furniture, the artwork on the walls, the life she thought she had. "You think this all came from that dusty old hardware store?" He spat. "You think I wanted to spend my life selling hammers and nails? I built this. By destroying my father's life," Sarah cried. "By stealing his legacy. By betraying everyone who trusted you. He was done anyway." Ryan yelled, his voice dripping with contempt. He turned to me, his eyes blazing with hatred. "The store was dying. You were useless. A relic of the past. I just hurried it along." He sneered. "He should be grateful I stepped in at all. I gave him 18 months of relevance." Sarah looked at me, her eyes filled with horror and shame. The realization of her husband's betrayal shattered her world. She had defended him, chosen him over me, believed his lies, accused me of jealousy. The silence stretched between us, thick with unspoken pain. I didn't know if we could ever recover from that. I didn't know if she would ever forgive herself. The next few weeks were a nightmare. The inevitable happened. The bank started foreclosure proceedings. Ryan had defaulted on the loans. Janice Reed was quietly fired when the bank realized the extent of the fraud, but the damage was done. The loans were still on the books. Miller's hardware was slated for auction. The auction I had just witnessed. The final dismantling of my life. The gavel falling. The end of an era. I thought that was the lowest point. I thought I had lost everything. I thought the fight was over. I was wrong. The worst betrayal was still waiting in the shadows. The final nail in the coffin. A few days after the auction, I was sitting in my house. The house Elizabeth and I built together. The house Sarah grew up in. The house where I still felt Elizabeth's presence in every room. My sanctuary. A certified letter arrived. From the bank. I opened it. My hands were shaking. I read the words, and my world collapsed. The air rushed out of my lungs. They were foreclosing on my house, too. I called Mr. Evans. Frantic. Desperate. How can they take my house? It has nothing to do with the business. I paid off the mortgage years ago. It's mine. Mr. Evans sighed. A heavy, weary sound. The sound of defeat. Thomas, remember that clause I warned you about? When you signed the papers giving Ryan control, I knew what he was going to say before he said it. My blood ran cold. My stomach churned. The personal guarantee, Mr. Evans continued softly. You put your house up as collateral for any business loans he took out. He leveraged everything, Thomas. Everything. I felt sick. Violently sick. I remembered Ryan rushing me through the documents. Just a formality, Thomas. Standard procedure. I had trusted him. I had trusted the lawyer to protect me. I had trusted family. Why didn't you stop me? I choked out. The betrayal felt suffocating. It was crushing me. I tried, Thomas, Mr. Evans said, his voice filled with regret. I strongly advised against it. You said they were family. You insisted on signing. I assumed you understood the risks. He paused. I didn't realize the extent of Ryan's deception. I didn't realize how cruel he was. I am so sorry. Sorry wasn't enough. Sorry wouldn't save my home. I was going to be homeless. At 65 years old, thrown out on the street, with nothing. The weight of my stupidity was unbearable. I had destroyed the last sanctuary I had left, the last connection to Elizabeth. I had failed her. I sat in the dark, numb, broken. I had nothing left to fight with, nothing left to fight for. I was done. I was drowning. I sat in my living room. Packing boxes surrounded me like tombstones. The eviction date was in 3 days. The walls were stripped bare of photos. Memories packed away in cardboard. Elizabeth's smile hidden in the darkness of a box. I had nowhere to go. No money. Nothing but the bitter taste of regret. Sarah came by to help me pack. The tension between us was thick. Heavy. She hadn't left Ryan yet. Despite the truth. Despite the evidence. She said she was confused. Needed time to process. That he was still her husband. That she didn't know how to unravel the life they built. He's still my husband, she whispered, twisting her ring. She looked lost, broken herself, a victim of his manipulation. I don't know where I'm going to go, Sarah. I said, taping up a box of Elizabeth's old photo albums. My hands were shaking. My voice was weak. You can stay with us, Dad, she offered. Her voice was hollow. Obligation, not love. A duty, with him in that house built on lies. After what he did? After he destroyed everything your mother and I built? She looked away, her face etched with pain. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to undo this. I'm scared, Dad. Her loyalty was tearing her apart. And it was tearing me apart, too. It felt like a second betrayal. From her, that she couldn't choose between me and the man who destroyed me. I needed a miracle. I needed a lifeline. I needed Elizabeth. I was clearing out the attic, the air thick with dust and memories. The scent of cedar and old paper. I stumbled upon an old, dusty metal box. Tucked away under the eaves, hidden, it was Elizabeth's memory box. She kept important documents in it. Birth certificates, old letters, love notes. I wrote her decades ago. I hadn't opened it since she passed. The grief was still too raw. The memories still too painful. I opened the box, hoping for a miracle, hoping for some forgotten savings bonds. Enough for a deposit on a small apartment. Enough to survive. Inside, amidst the papers and photographs, I found something unexpected. A small, rusted key, taped to an envelope. The envelope was addressed to me, in Elizabeth's familiar, elegant handwriting. The handwriting I miss so much, for when things get tough, It read. I recognized the key, a safety deposit box. At the old downtown bank, the First National Bank, the one with the marble floors and the brass railings. Elizabeth had kept it for years, insisted on paying the annual fee herself. I always thought it was just for sentimental items. Jewelry, maybe. Her grandmother's pearls. I had forgotten it existed. A message from my wife, reaching out from beyond the grave. A lifeline. I drove to the bank the next morning, my old pickup truck sputtering, the engine coughing like it was dying too. The bank felt like a mausoleum, quiet and still. The clerk led me to the vault. The heavy metal door creaked open, the sound echoing in the silence. She located the box, inserted my key in hers, pulled out the long, narrow drawer. She left me alone in the small viewing room. The air was cool, still. My hands trembled as I opened the box. I didn't know if I was about to find salvation or just more heartbreak. I braced myself for the latter. There was no money, no jewelry, no pearls, just papers. Stacks of them, yellowed with age, and a letter on top. I picked up the letter from Elizabeth, dated just a few months before she passed, when Ryan and Sarah had just gotten married, when the darkness first entered our lives. My dearest Thomas, if you are reading this, it means things have gone wrong, terribly wrong. You always saw the best in people, Thomas. It's one of the things I loved most about you. Your kindness, your faith in humanity, but it also made you vulnerable. It made you blind to the darkness in others. My eyes blurred with tears. She knew me better than I knew myself. She always did. When Sarah married Ryan, I had a bad feeling. He was too charming, too ambitious, too focused on money and status. He smiled too much, but the smile never reached his eyes. He reminded me of my own father. A man who gambled away our family fortune and left us with nothing but debt and shame. I saw the same greed in Ryan's eyes, the same emptiness behind his smile. My wife knew. She saw him for what he was, long before I did. While I was blinded by hope, she saw the truth. I couldn't risk him doing the same to you, to Sarah, to the store we built together. The store wasn't just a business, Thomas. It was our promise to the community. It was our legacy. So, I took precautions. I protected you. I protected us. I couldn't tell you because you would have stopped me. You would have said I was being paranoid, that I needed to trust him, that I needed to give him a chance. But I couldn't take that chance. I loved you too much. I put the letter down, confused. Protected me, how? We were ruined. We had lost everything. The store was gone. The house was next. Then I looked at the documents. Legal papers, deeds, contracts, trust agreements, and then I saw it. The blueprint she left behind. The original deed to the property where Miller's Hardware stood. But it wasn't just a deed. It was a community trust document. Elizabeth had secretly transferred the ownership of the property. Not the business, but the land and the building itself, into an irrevocable community trust. Ironclad. She had consulted a lawyer in the city, someone who didn't know us, to make sure it was unbreakable. The terms were specific. The property could only be used for a locally owned, community-serving business. It could not be sold, leveraged, or used as collateral for loans. Not without the unanimous approval of the trust board members. And the board members, Kevin, my former manager, Dave, my fishing buddy, and me, Elizabeth had anticipated his greed. She had seen the storm coming. She had protected me from beyond the grave. She had protected me from myself. The realization hit me like a lightning bolt, a jolt of energy, of hope. Ryan didn't own the building. The bank couldn't foreclose on it. The loans he took out, the ones Janice Reed approved, were fraudulent. The game had changed. The hunter was now the hunted. But I had to act fast. The eviction was tomorrow. The bank still thought they owned the property. I needed a lawyer I could trust, and I had no money. Mr. Evans had failed me once. But I had no choice. He was the only one who could fix this. The only one who could fix this. The only one who understood the history. I rushed to Mr. Evans's office. Despite my reservations, I burst in, interrupting a meeting. You need to see this, I said, spreading the papers on his desk. My hands were steady now, my voice strong. You need to fix this. I paused. You owe me this. Mr. Evans read the documents, his eyes widening in disbelief. He looked ashamed. He looked like a man who realized he had been complicit in a crime. Thomas, this changes everything, he breathed. This trust, it's ironclad. Why didn't Elizabeth tell me? Why did she do this in secret? Because she knew, I said, my voice shaking with emotion. She knew I was too trusting. She protected me from myself, and from him. Mr. Evans sprang into action. He seemed determined to redeem himself, to make things right. He called the bank, the foreclosure department. Ryan's lawyers. He filed an emergency injunction to stop the eviction, to stop the sale of the property. The loans Ryan took out using the property as collateral were fraudulent, Mr. Evans explained, a fierce light in his eyes. He didn't own the property. He never owned it. The bank made a massive mistake, he continued. They didn't do their due diligence. They didn't verify the ownership of the collateral. Their negligence, fueled by Janice Reed's corruption, is staggering. They are liable for everything. The news spread like wildfire. The tables had turned, and Ryan was about to feel the ground crumble beneath his feet. Ryan stormed into the lawyer's office an hour later, his face red with fury, his expensive suit rumpled. He looked cornered, desperate. Liam, the consultant, was right behind him, looking terrified. He knew the ship was sinking. What is this? You can't do this. Ryan screamed at me, pointing a trembling finger in my face. That property is mine. The bank owns it. The foreclosure is final. It's already done, Ryan, I said calmly. A sense of peace settled over me. The anger, the fear, the despair, it all melted away, replaced by a cold, hard resolve. Elizabeth stopped you, I said. You never stood a chance. Liam backed away slowly, realizing the gravity of the situation. The liability. He slipped out the door, abandoning his boss. The rat fleeing the sinking ship. Ryan looked wildly around the room, trapped. The loans were still due, but now he had no assets to cover them. He was ruined. The debt was his, and his alone. The house of cards he built was collapsing. He was facing bankruptcy, fraud charges, jail time. You planned this, he accused, his voice hysterical. You set me up. You knew about this all along. You played me. No, Ryan, I said. You set yourself up. Your greed blinded you. You underestimated me, and you underestimated my wife. I stepped closer. You thought you were the smartest person in the room. You were just the greediest. Ryan turned to Mr. Evans, desperate for leverage. His voice turned venomous. A last-ditch effort to save himself. You're his lawyer? Ryan shouted. But you also facilitated the takeover. You reviewed the loan agreements. If I go down for fraud, you're coming with me. You facilitated the negligence. You are liable too. Mr. Evans flinched. He knew Ryan was right. He had exposed himself to lawsuits, disciplinary action. His career was on the line. He had to choose, his reputation or his integrity. Mr. Evans looked at Ryan, then at me. He took a deep breath, straightening his tie. He aged 10 years in that moment, but his eyes were clear. He had made his choice. Ryan, Mr. Evans said, his voice steady, firm. I suggest you find new representation. I will be cooperating fully with the authorities. I will accept whatever consequences come from my negligence. He walked over to me, stood by my side, a silent show of solidarity, and I will be representing Mr. Miller, pro bono, he said, in his lawsuit against you, in the bank for damages. It's the least I can do. Ryan's empire crumbled, not with a bang, but with a whimper. His whimper. The eviction was canceled. The bank, facing a massive lawsuit for negligence, corruption, and fraudulent foreclosure, dropped the claim on my house and the store property. They offered a significant settlement for the emotional distress, the damages, eager to avoid the bad publicity of a trial. Janice Reed was arrested for bank fraud. Ryan was arrested that afternoon. Fraud, embezzlement, grand larceny. The evidence was overwhelming. He took a plea deal, 10 years in prison. The city boy who thought he could steal a legacy was now just a number in the system. Sarah was waiting for me when I got home, sitting on the porch swing, the one Elizabeth and I used to sit on every evening, watching the sunset. The setting sun cast a golden light on her face. She looked exhausted, but peaceful. Free, she looked up at me, her eyes red from crying, but clear, focused. For the first time in months. "I left him, Dad," she whispered, her voice trembling but firm. "I filed for divorce. I told the police everything. I cooperated with the investigation. I sold the house," she continued. "The car, everything he bought with the stolen money. I gave it all back. I kept nothing." I sat down next to her, putting my arm around her. The familiar creak of the swing was a comforting sound, a reminder of the life we had almost lost, the life Elizabeth had saved. "I'm so sorry, Dad," she sobbed, burying her face in my shoulder. "I should have listened to you. I was so caught up in the lifestyle, in his promises. I didn't see who he really was. I didn't want to see it." "I know, honey. I know." I held her tight, breathing in the scent, her hair. "It's okay. We're okay. Your mother saved us." We sat there for a long time, in the quiet twilight, the silence broken only by the chirping of the crickets. "What happens now?" she asked, looking up at me with hopeful eyes. "We rebuild," I said, a newfound strength resonating in my voice. "We rebuild together." The next few months were tough, but rewarding. The store was a mess. Ryan had gutted it, sold off the inventory. The building needed repairs. The sterile rebranding had destroyed the character of the place. But we weren't alone. The community trust Elizabeth created wasn't just a legal document. It was a lifeline connecting us back to the town. Kevin came back the next day. He didn't ask for a job. He just picked up a broom and started sweeping, a determined look on his face. The pencil was back behind his ear. "We have work to do, boss," he said, grinning. Dave showed up with a crew of volunteers. The town came together. They helped us repaint, repair the roof, build new shelves, tearing down the sterile white plastic, replacing it with warm, welcoming wood. They brought back the smell of pine and machine oil. Stan Petro's lumber truck pulled up. "Heard you needed some quality wood," Stan said, spitting out his toothpick and smiling. "First load is on the house. Welcome back, Thomas." The community came back. They missed the old Miller's hardware. They missed the trust, the reliability, the sense of belonging. We reopened the store 2 months later. We put up a new sign, a hand-carved wooden one, just like the original, with the crossed hammer and wrench. But this time, we added a small plaque underneath. Established 1985, re-established 2025, in memory of Elizabeth Miller, our guardian angel. The store thrived, not because of modernization or optimized supply chains, but because of loyalty, trust, and community. Sarah moved back in with me. She took over the bookkeeping. She was sharp, organized, fiercely protective of the business. She was her mother's daughter. I realized I hadn't lost everything. I lost my naive belief that family always means loyalty, that everyone is inherently good. But I found something far more valuable in that old bank locker. I found the proof my wife's unconditional love, her force. I found the strength to fight back when I thought I had nothing left. I found the true meaning of family in forgiveness and the willingness to rebuild stronger than before. I still go to the diner sometimes, early in the morning, before the store opens. The coffee is hot, the conversation comforting. My life doesn't feel blurry anymore. It feels sharp, focused, full of purpose. I know who I am. I know what matters. I am Thomas Miller. I own Miller's Hardware. And thanks to Elizabeth, I am the richest man in the world. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to subscribe and feel free to share your story in the comments. Your time matters.